This is Internal Battle, the #1 podcast for parents who face a child medical diagnosis. Sharing these stories with you will be our host, Nathan Jepson. I'd like to introduce Brooke, who has come down from the Central Coast to go through her child's journey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
That's good. So my story basically began June 2020 when my daughter started to become very unwell. She'd just started daycare. We thought she just had a normal cold, which pretty sure she did at first. She got better for about a day. Then all of a sudden she spiked a temp of about 40 degrees out of nowhere. This went on and off for about 2 weeks between doctor's visits and emergency appointments at the hospital. We finally got a blood test done on our 3rd trip to emergency within that time frame. And the doctors came over to me and said the tests aren't right, her counts aren't right. They wanted to retake her bloods again, which was fine. I think as a parent, you just got to trust your gut feeling. And I said straight away, what do you think is going on? We had this poor junior doctor who was trying to tell me the news, and this story makes me laugh till this day because I asked him and he just stared at me blankly had no idea what to say. There was a more senior doctor behind him who then turned around and basically just said, look, we think it's either a virus, a really bad virus, or blood cancer. Because it was COVID during this point in time, I'm sitting there by myself, my husband at home, because he wasn't allowed in with my daughter receiving this news. If I wasn't sitting down, I think I would have passed out at that point in time. I pretty much straight away just asked if I could get my husband down, and they said yes. We were put in an isolation room, and from there it was just blood transfusion, platelet transfusion, and waiting for an ambulance to take us down to Westmead from Gosford Hospital. I think I arrived at Westmead at about 3 a.m. I felt like I was literally dumped in the middle of the bush with my daughter because I did not have a clue where I was, and I would stay down at Westmead with my daughter for about 7 weeks, joined by my husband and made Ronald McDonald House our home.
Yeah, wow. And you said she was diagnosed with leukemia pre-BALL?
Yes, that's correct. So, yeah, she was diagnosed with that. As a parent, you don't want your kid to get cancer, but we were, I guess you could say, blessed with the opportunity that she actually was diagnosed with the most common childhood cancer and the most highest success rate in surviving that cancer.
But it's still super aggressive though, wasn't it?
Yes, it cuts you to your core. I think her first bone marrow sample showed that she had 70% leukemia within her system.
Wow.
So that, yeah.
70%.
Yes.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is. Of course, it's heartbreaking. I think back now, we're nearly at the 3-year mark since she was diagnosed. She was only 2.5 at the time. She's now nearly 5.5 at school, thriving, doing so well. She's, no one would know that she was sick, but you look at her and just go, she has no idea how far she's come, but we see it, and it's just beautiful to watch, but also heartbreaking to know what she's been through at such a young age to stay on this planet.
Yeah, I can only imagine because, she was 2 years old when she was diagnosed, so even going to the hospital with the temps would have been confusing for her because she's little and she probably wouldn't have been able to communicate properly, maybe just starting to talk.
Yes. So we're at that kind of stage where, she was saying, oh, my legs are hurting. But what 2.5-year-old doesn't want to be carried by their parents because they still want to be that young baby? Yeah. So that was basically, when we look back, one of the only things that was kind of showing symptoms that it could be leukemia. She was quite unwell for 2 weeks, but we never thought in our wildest dreams this is what it would be. Interesting, both my husband and myself, of course, you start to get worried, but you try not to worry each other, had done some Google searches. Each of us, after the fact, came back to each other to say, hey, we did see leukemia as a possibility, but each of us thought no, because she wasn't showing any of the other typical symptoms like bruising easily, nosebleeds, things like that. So we were just like, whoa, okay. When it happened, we're like, did we have this gut instinct or I don't know? But the thing is, as parents, you just trust your gut, and it's hard to do, trust me, because you get told so many different things, but just trust if something's not right, get it seen to.
Yeah. Always speak up is one of the things I've kind of come to know. Doesn't matter how trivial it is. Simply down to like when we go into the hospital for like bloods and checkups and bandage changes and stuff like that. If the nurses come in and they wash their hands with the alcohol sanitizer, it's great. But if they don't glove up, I'm like, can you please glove up?
Yeah.
Because I don't need. He's sick at the moment. He's got a temp. I don't need any more other infections.
Yes.
Sometimes, as great as the nurses are, and they have been, sometimes they just kind of slip. They're like, oh, I've just washed my hands. I can touch this stuff. It's like, no.
Yes, it's the same with the cleaning of the central line and stuff. You're always just making sure that, hey, you're rubbing it with that alcohol. You're doing everything right. As parents, you learn so much so quickly, and you need to advocate for your child. They're like, they're not able to do it at their age when they're so young. It's just something that you need to do. You need to speak up and don't be afraid to do so because you usually do know best.
Yeah. The gut instinct, especially from a mother's point of view, like, I don't think we'd be here yet, or we would have been here late because we had Oliver booked in to see an EMT specialist to get his ears looked at in November, and we found issues in September, and my wife pushed because she had that gut feeling.
Yeah, so basically from there, living down here at Westmead, starting chemo, unfortunately we arrived down here on a weekend. Hospitals don't function on the weekend.
No, they don't, yeah.
Unless you're literally on your deathbed. Don't expect much, or on public holidays. So we basically had to wait until the Monday to get tests done. So it was a couple of anxious days waiting. Monday confirmed she did have some type of leukemia. Then it was deciding what type of leukemia she had. Putting your kid under general anaesthetic for the first time, oh my gosh, it's just a crazy, crazy experience. Just something you thought you would never have to do, and then I've done it so many times I've lost count, and it just becomes part of the procedure. One of the first things we started with her once she had her official diagnosis was steroids. People say they are basically worse than the chemo itself, and I do agree with that. I felt like in the first few weeks that I'd lost my daughter. I didn't know where she'd gone. Her personality had flipped. Yes, she was sick, but she was so down and depressed, so angry and bitter. It just was not my child at all. But wean off those steroids and hallelujah, I found my daughter again. Obviously still had one hell of a battle on our hands, but just doing chemo as a process was a lot easier than dealing with a grumpy, moody, hungry child all the time. And I remember her first chemo. Her chemo was red in colour. Forget the name of it now, but you could watch it go through the line all the way until it hit its system. And as a parent, you just had to sit on your hands and just let it happen as much as you want to pull it out because you're putting poison into your child's system. But
it's one of those hectic decisions you never thought you'd have to make. And I don't think I've ever had a coloured chemo for Oliver, but I can imagine just like the heart stopping watching it and like everything slow down and just seeing the drip and the line change of colour until it goes into the central line.
Yep, and it's just
my goodness.
Crazy moment. With that, she was pretty blessed throughout most of her treatment to not have too much nausea and stuff, but we were very much keeping on top of that with 2 different types of anti-nausea medication. We had to ask for a second one just because there was one chemo called methotrexate, horrid stuff, that you had to do 24-hour hospital stays to get that put through, plus stay longer until it's flushed out of their system. It's just so dangerous for their little bodies that they need to then be pumped full of fluids after to flush out their kidneys and everything to make sure to hopefully prevent damage with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and then going to the toilet and changing, and she would have been in nappies.
She was in nappies, and gloving up, changing nappies, and when she was on these methotrexate rounds, it was changing nappies every 1 to 2 hours, otherwise it would leak. Everywhere.
Oh,
so, because there's just so much fluids going through their system.
Yeah, I couldn't, because we're moving on to the maintenance stage for Oliver, and they're giving us the oral liquid, the daily dose of chemo, and she's like, we'll have to give you a hazard pack, gloves and mask and stuff to wear when you're handling and dealing with those meds, because it's so hazardous. And I was like, wow. And then, when you go to clinic and you go to the hospitals and you're in Camperdown or the oncology wards specifically, there's all those signs of the toilet, please, if you've had chemo, flush twice.
Yes.
And you don't realise, like, they're putting the chemo in their body, and then obviously it needs to be flushed out naturally through their urine, and they're going to the toilet for their stool. And yeah, you don't actually kind of realise that the splashback and all that stuff just naturally. Obviously, you shut the toilet lid when you flush, but you don't realise, how hazardous chemo can be, and that if you get it on you or whatnot, how sick you can get as well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, chemo causes cancer as well at the end of the day, but it cures it. But, for us parents, we do need to take the precautions. Otherwise, we're putting ourselves at higher risk as well.
Yeah, which sucks. We don't need to do that.
It does.
They're already under enough stress and exhaustion and grief and everything going on. You don't need to, poison yourself as well while you're trying to take care of your child.
Gosh, no. Although you'll do anything for them, it doesn't. Yeah, at the end of the day, that's the least of your concerns when they're going through something like this.
Yeah, which is funny that you say that, because it's not on the top of your priority list, but it still has to be in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Like
definitely.
I can't think of specific moments where I don't wear gloves when I take Ollie to the toilet or I help him. And I'm like, I get out of there and I'm like, crap, he literally had chemo like an hour ago. I probably should have gloved up and masked up when I went in there and wiped his bum or flushed the toilet for him. I washed my hands and everything, but I was like, wow, I could have.
Yeah.
And then the next couple of days, I'm like watching it, making sure, like, I'll quickly Google the signs and symptoms of what happens if you get chemo and you.
You're still standing. You're good.
Yeah,
you're good.
I'm not sick. I'm not showing anything. Mention it to the nurses just to make sure, but and then you mentioned it's 3 years ago, during COVID.
Yes.
I couldn't imagine doing that through COVID, because we had support system. We had my parents, my wife's parents, siblings coming, friends coming and visiting us and helping us out, and going in and sitting with Oliver while we went to have some us time or some quiet time. You almost had to fight for your husband just to come down.
Yeah, so it's a struggle. Getting in the door is the hardest part. Once you're in, the nurses are a lot more understanding. If my husband and I would try to enter a hospital together, it would basically nearly be impossible. So we just did it in shifts. No family, friends, anyone like that were allowed in the hospital. It usually just one parent at the bedside at a time. As I said, once you're on the ward, they do tend to be a lot more lenient, especially if you've got your own room, and everybody loves having their own room.
Yeah, the isolation rooms.
As much as it
so
sucks,
good.
Because your kid's like, damn, they've got something that's quite bad going on because they're in the isolation room, but it gives you the privacy that you really, really need.
Yeah.
Because the rooms are quite tiny when you're sharing. So usually for my husband and myself, we did it. He would go do the day shifts when Eloise was in hospital, and I'd stay overnight with her. Then I'd nearly try and just basically sleep all day, because you don't get much sleep.
Yeah, no, you don't.
When you're sleeping in hospital rooms. But kids seem to sleep through everything. Obs, nappy changes, just not phased at all.
Yeah. Ollie does that sometimes too. It's hard when they wake up, but they put the thing around their arm, and blood pressure thing, and tightens around their arm, and it's like, please don't wake up. And then they're done, and they're like, okay, see you later.
Yep.
Switch the light off, and it's still snoring away, and it's like, yes.
I know, it amazes me. I think my daughter slept through pretty much all the time.
Oh, that's good.
Another thing is the phobia of thermometers. That's becomes a real thing.
Of the thermometer checks. And
yes, because you're checking temps twice a day, and most of the time you can tell if they do have a temperature, but sometimes it catches you by surprise, and you just think, oh God, not again. And it's not their fault. It's not your fault, but you just think, oh, we just got out of hospital yesterday, and here we go again.
Another 48 hour.
Yes, the bag's packed, ready to go.
Yeah.
And my daughter at that point was cluey enough to know that we were picking up that red kite stripy bag. I don't know. She knew. I don't want to go back to the hospital. And it's like, I'm sorry, you have to. It's just, one of those things, because she knew she'd be in straight away for a COVID swab, all the poking and prodding just to try and figure out what's going on, when a lot of the times it was just her counts had just dropped and she was needing yet again another transfusion or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we've been through many of those. Ollie's all right with taking his thermometer, but you can just see the look on his face when it's like 37.6, 37.8. And then sometimes it's 38.2 and he's like, oh no. And then it's 37.9 and it's like, yeah, but you still got a temp, so we've got to really watch. So we've got to be careful. You can't just be okay or freak out because it's close to 38, it's something we've got to be careful and watch.
Just to be conscious of. And I even remember a few times maybe my husband would be out and I'm like, I'll just check a temperature. And then I'd watch it and it would go over that 38 and I'd quickly pull it out and I'm like, he'd be home in 5 minutes. I'm just bailing on this for now.
We'll check it again then.
We'll check it again then.
Yeah.
And the little beeping sound and stuff, like it's just,
Yeah, it's one of those things that now it's like almost a PTSD thing, that beep.
Yeah, definitely is. So even now, because she's off her maintenance treatment and everything like that, so if she does get sick, she's, good to roll like a normal child. But I still try to just take a temperature as much as I can, one, to help me overcome my PTSD about thermometers, but two, also just to see how she's travelling and how her body is working so different to when she was actually unwell.
Yeah. I found that very difficult actually with how almost like the instant reaction that you have with kids on chemo and immune compromised kids, how you react with the temperature and a fever, and how you react with, because it's like Ollie had a temp and then Gracie had a temp and they were sick at the same time once, and I was like, Gracie, just take your jumper off, go jump in a warm shower, cool you down, give you some Panadol, and then it's like, okay, Ollie, you go pack your bag, you're going to hospital.
Yeah.
Like the difference.
Yeah, it's so night and day. And you think you're become this paranoid parent, but for a reason. It's, if we were going to arrange, which was rare, and in between like play dates with friends or anything, we would have to be like, look, is your kid showing any signs of being sick? Like we're not, I swear we're doing this for a reason. And I think most people got it. But you don't completely get it unless we live it, we breathe it. We are there every step of the way. They see it from the outside, and unfortunately for us, COVID kept them all on the outside rather than being like on the inside. And in the end, you give up messaging your friends going, oh, we're in hospital again. Yes, of course, your family knows, but they don't need to hear like every second day, oh, we're back in here doing this, or this is what's happened now, because it's just becomes this giant long story of just,
Same.
Yeah. And to them it is, but to us you're like, oh my gosh, your kid's screaming in pain in hospital because they have C. diff or something, and all you want to do is take all their pain away, and it's just not possible. It doesn't matter how many pain meds they have, sometimes it's just there and it's continuous.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Rushing back and forward to hospital, sometimes it's just as grueling. Like living here at Ronald's is great because it's only 200 metres down the road, but I couldn't imagine having to drive, especially like if we're from the Central Coast, like driving to Gosford and then getting everything dealt with there and then having to transfer to Westmead.
Yeah, so that's happened to us a couple of times. So unfortunately for us, I think we were down here for about 7 weeks in Ronald McDonald House in the beginning, until Westmead felt comfortable enough to allow us to go home. In and out of hospital within that time. I think our longest stint has been 17 days in hospital, but that's nothing compared to other people. And, through that 7 weeks, we probably had 3 or 4 different hospital admissions. Thank God the clinic here is open during the day, so you don't have to go to ED. Yeah. So that's a bonus. And then we went to Gosford. We lasted 24 hours at home, and we ended up back in Gosford Hospital, I think for about a week. Yeah. And then we're back to the to and fro, living here, living back home near Gosford, and just juggling that lifestyle. But a few times we did request to be sent here at Gosford if we were needing chemo. It was our priority to request a transfer from Gosford to Westmead. Yeah. But then we also had one day our daughter had a seizure. This was probably the scariest moment in her whole treatment thing. She seized a little bit at home. We got her in the car. We took her to hospital. She was seeming fine. Thankfully, at the time a doctor was checking her, she started to seize again. So I didn't have to call anybody. The doctor was there witnessing what was happening. We were then rushed to resus. From there, they could not control these seizures. They were in touch with Westmead at the same time. I think it would have had to be in oncology and neurology at this point in time. It's all a bit of a blur because you go into panic stations as a parent. Their decision was to intubate her. So my husband and I stood outside the room as we watched her being intubated. A beautiful doctor guided us through what was going on and everything. So that was really lovely to have that support there at that time. And then the helicopter was meant to come from Sydney to land. Unfortunately, if you're going to have seizures, don't do them in the middle of a storm because it could not land. So we had to wait for the NETS team to drive from Sydney to then be taken here to Westmead to the PICU, where we stayed for about 48 hours with her being intubated for the majority of that time. There was a bit of conflict with the doctors. So neurology didn't think it was a neurotoxicity because after viewing the MRI, there was no signs of that. I think there's more of a dark area around the brain if it is a neurotoxicity, which is caused by the chemo treatment, especially one particular, I think it's the methotrexate. And then oncology thought it was. It did change Eloise's treatment plan a little bit, but everything that they did made sense and it has been proven to work. And obviously we've still, for now, had a positive outcome from it. It, however, turns out that she actually has benign childhood seizures, or that's what we're thinking they are. And we're hoping by the end of the year we'll be off all medication and she'll be seizure-free.
Wow. On top of having leukemia.
Yes. We got that one. We got extra lucky. That's what I just like to call it. They just happened to coincide with each other. I think either or was going to be inevitable. So, yeah, hopefully we get it all done and dusted before she's older and she can just enjoy her life.
That's what you want.
Yeah. She's had a couple of seizures since, but thankfully she is on medication. That does seem to be working relatively well. It's just when she's been growing, she has outgrown her dose. But apparently at about 5, your brain does some major changes. She's now 5, hasn't had a seizure since turning 5. So fingers crossed, Yeah, we come down and visit. I mean, you probably have heaps of doctors to deal with, neurology and oncology, and it's like, wow, okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's one thing about, I think, maybe having a daughter with leukemia, you basically just deal with, like what we did, oncologists, up until this seizure point where yourself is going through a different thing. And I don't think people realise how many teams would be around
they're hands in the pot. Like, so you've got your main doctor, and then you've got your surgeon, and then you've got your, like your understudy doctors, which are part of the team. But then there's like multiple teams, and depending on when you go into clinic or you're in ward, depends on who comes to see you. And then you've got your different nurses, and then we did radiation, so we had the radiologist team, and we had a radiologist, but then she had a team of like 3 staff that worked the machine and worked her patients, and then in the oncology team, I think there was like six doctors, and then mid round 1 last year, when we were about December, January, they had a doctor shift, so they changed teams. Doctors, went to different hospitals and then revitalised the teams, and then we had new people, and it probably in our journey, I think we probably had on our list of team members that have been helping us with Oliver anywhere between 30 to 50 staff members from the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, I hated when that doctor turnover day came around, because you just start to know everybody and think, I'm getting somewhere. And then all of a sudden, a spanner's thrown in the works again, and you're like, what's going on? Who are you? I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah, you get comfortable with them as well.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just changes. And then sometimes I've found, like when Eloise has gone under general anaesthetic, I'm trying to tell them what she's needing done, because they're like, what is she up to? What's happening? And there hasn't been that correct ideal communication there at times. And again, that's as a parent, just speak up.
Yeah.
It's you're not even doing it for you. You're doing it for your kids.
Yeah, exactly. And you're helping them. Like they're doctors, they're professionals, but they, that you don't think about it, but they have like probably 50 to 100 patients underneath them.
They are definitely overworked. It's crazy. And I just think in this day and age, like with it basically hardly anyone being on weekends and stuff, why on earth can hospitals not function? If Coles and Woolworths and all those places be open like 24/7, why can't a hospital have enough staff to help people like in their hour of need? Because we also had a relapse scare at the end of last year. We got a call from Gosford on a Saturday saying, hey, we think we did her bloods on the Thursday. We got the counts back. They all look good, but they found, I think it was some immature lymphocytes, which is where her cancer would grow if it was coming back. We were toing and froing with Gosford trying to talk to Westmead, us thinking, who do we contact? The clinic's not open. We were so lost. And everything was just a shamble. But if this had happened during the week, we would have had more supports there. We would have known exactly who to call, how to go about it. We've had a discussion since, and we have been told, just call the ward, Camperdown. And we're like, we didn't really want to think of to do that, because we thought we're not really, a patient there anymore, and we didn't want to inconvenience anyone. So that was an interesting week, but it turns out she just had a virus. Yay. So that was a big relief, but it was a lot of toing and froing because this did happen on the weekend. It took longer to get that answer, and all you want is a yes or no answer when you're in that situation.
Yeah, I think from experience, having the weekend visits, there's like, so you have your teams of doctors that are there Monday to Friday, but on the weekends they only have 1 or 2 doctors per area, but then an on-call doctor as well. So you go from a team of 50 to a team of 3.
Yeah.
And it's like they're there, but it goes exponential. They've got so many patients to look after, and all the ED people coming in. So you barely ever see a doctor that comes through when you go on a weekend.
You learn to run on hospital time.
Yeah.
We'll be here in 15 minutes. 5 hours later. Oh, good to see you. Glad you made it here.
Yeah. I'm glad that we can laugh about it now, but in the time that you're there, you're frustrated, you're furious, and you don't understand why. And you're talking to the nurses, and like, they're coming, they've been paged, or sorry, they've just been paged somewhere else. And then in the back of your mind, you're kind of like, why is that patient more important than my patient? But it's a difficult thing to talk about because no one's more important, but they do have their level of, priorities. And then you can understand, like, when we had our biopsy done, we had our surgery booked in and it got rescheduled. And because of an emergency. And I was like, when I first happened, I was like, rescheduled? Are you serious? We need to know. Like, they need to do a biopsy. They're going to cut open his head. There's 3 options that they gave us when they talked to us. So there's like 1 that's like a safe option-ish. 2 was a bit more scary and it could cause problems with the cancer and the tumour. And 3 was like they quite literally needed to lift his skull and lift his brain to get to the tumour. And they're just like, we really don't want to do number 3, but if we have to, we have to. And I'm like, oh my God. And then when we had all that information dumped on us, then when they said, sorry, we have to reschedule. But in light of all that, I kind of took a step back and then realised the perception of the events. Like, if there's an emergency, there's an emergency.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be letting this frustration and this anger kind of build up to get to me.
Yeah.
It's not going to help me. It's not going to help Oliver. It's not going to help anybody else. So kind of understanding your emotions and feelings in those moments, you know that you're going to be angry and you know that you're going to be frustrated, full of grief, full of sadness, all those sort of things. It's kind of knowing how to deal with those things. And in the moments you don't really care. But at the same time, taking a breath, taking a step back and just kind of thinking of the bigger picture and just letting it happen, because there's not much that you can really do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Once you get that diagnosis of cancer, you just kind of have to roll with the bunches. And like you said, hospital time and things happen. Like, there's nothing living here at Ronald's has been quite scary because you don't realize how many people go through traumatic incidents or accidents or events. Give or take, every 2 or 3 hours there's a helicopter that flies off or lands at Westmead. And that's just one hospital.
Yeah. Do you get anxious when you hear that helicopter land?
Yeah. Anxious for the helicopter and for the ambulances when you hear the sirens driving past.
It's so, I can't look at a helicopter the same now because your heart just goes, oh my gosh, like, especially if it is one of the medical ones, you just go, those poor people, like, their life's just changed forever in a second. And it really can happen. Like, it's crazy. So it's just interesting as a parent how you feel. You feel just so defensive, and also I'm going to call it maybe a little bit selfish. You do have compassion and things for those around you. No one wants to see anyone's kid going through this, especially their own. But when you're sitting in that oncology clinic, sometimes you sit in there, you feel like you might have the sickest kid, definitely not in the hospital, but on the clinic, going to get chemo or whatever that day. But you sit there and you look at these kids, and all parents would have to be thinking the same, that all you want is for your child to be that one to survive. As harsh as it might sound, you don't want your kid to be the one that's not going to make it. You don't want cancer to steal your child. And you look around and there's a good chance that quite a few of these people sitting with you are going to live through the unthinkable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it does. It's just interesting how it plays mind games, and you sit in there, with an unhealthy child. Now I sit in there with a healthy child, and you feel guilty for having the healthy child, for ringing that bell when you finish treatment and stuff like that. You know where these people are, and I remember looking at the healthy kids thinking, I just want to get there. I just want this to be my child. Yep. You get there, and then your emotions are just so different to what you thought they were. You sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, they're looking at me. Well, I'm putting words into their mouths, but I used to look at parents that did have the kid that had their hair back and were happy and bubbly and just living their best life by the looks of it, thinking, I just want to be there. But now you're there. There's a whole new set of fears that kick in. You don't want to go back. You know, every blood test we do every month, you just get anxious for, thinking, oh my gosh, are we going to be okay? She's been acting normal and seeming fine, but is this going to give me the results that I'm after? And you kind of just hold your breath in that moment. It is a struggle. And I mean, yeah, as for us, yeah, we had the kid that had the best cancer you could hope for, but it's still, you know, relapse is a fear.
Yeah.
You know, losing your child is a fear, but you just try to take it a day at a time. And I live by, you know, you could step in front of a bus tomorrow principle now. It's, you never know what's going to happen to yourself or anyone around you.
Yeah.
The reality is 2 words can change your life, you know. It's just as simple as, well, 1 word really, cancer.
Yeah.
Your kid has cancer.
Yeah.
And done. Never be the same again. Never. But it has brought out some good things. Also, obviously, brought out some really not so nice things. But, yeah.
I agree, because I went down the rabbit hole in the first, 3 to 6 months that we were here. And, I let my emotions just kind of dig that deep hole where I just kind of didn't have anything to think about, didn't have anything to worry about other than hospital visits, medication. And it's a constant thing. It never leaves your mind. Like, I talk to my wife about, she takes medication for some things, and she forgets. You know, she wakes up in the morning. It's like one of the first things she needs to do is obviously have breakfast and have her meds. And every now and again she might forget her day meds, or she'll have her morning meds at midday because she's like, oh crap, I forgot my meds. Trying to keep that in your mind, where with an oncology patient, like Ollie is currently on 6 types of meds. Some of them are once a week, some of them are twice a day, 3 times a day. One of them's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, twice a day. Like, and then he's got the optional meds for the nausea, for the diarrhea, for constipation, all those different types of things. And having that in your mind, and having, trying to set up a calendar, reminders, and all that kind of stuff, it's daunting. And then, but you've also got to deal with your own stuff as well on top of that.
Exactly.
And then you got to, like, I remember there was one moment I was like having this, and they just like, you gave him his bed. I'm like, yep, tick that box, tick this box, yep, did that. And it was like, okay, I got to get dinner ready. And I don't think I ate today. And I'm like, and I didn't really sleep last night. It's like, how can I function? I'm not functioning properly to take care of myself, let alone take care of my kids, but I have to do both.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't kind of understand the dauntingness behind that. And like the sleep deprivation kicks in, nutritional drops start to weigh on your body and your physicality. But then you've also got to try and keep on top of their meds.
Yep.
And then on top of the things that just jump up at the spur of the moment with the temperature, or, if they're fine and they're eating food, and then lunchtime they decided to have a vomit, and then they vomit all afternoon. And your day's ruined, and you just got to sit there and comfort them and try and give them their meds, but then they vomit, and then they have a temp, so you got to rush to the hospital. Or they vomit so much for a couple of days that they, they're dehydrated, and then diarrhea comes into it. So, oh crap, we got chemo tomorrow. Yeah. It's just going to put more poison into the body and ruin the body even more.
Exactly. Or you think, we really need to get this chemo done, but is it going to happen? Because I don't know how. We'll postponed quite a few times with blood counts and stuff just not being right. And as hard as this is, you're just like, I just want them to be right, get this over and done with. Like, we're meant to do about 6 months of IV chemo. It turned into 10 months. But exact same treatment, but just with breaks here and there and everywhere in between, because she's unwell for a week, or counts weren't right, and you're like so prepared and worked up mentally to do it, and then you get told no, and you're like, okay, take a breath, let's reset, let's appreciate, hopefully she'll be really good this week because she hasn't had any treatment, and enjoy that time. And then
and enjoying every day you can, and every moment. Like we try and enjoy, like, even the littlest of things. Ollie gets up and he asks for a specific food. It's one of the things that we're dealing with at the moment with Oliver, is he doesn't, what do you want to eat for breakfast? I don't know. Well, what do you feel like? I don't know. Well, do you want to eat today? Do you want us to feed you? You need to help us out. Like, and then it's like we get all the cereals and we get everything out. It's like, which one do you want? I don't know. Well, are you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Just pick one. It's like, but I don't know if I want to like it, or I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I want to eat it, or if I get the bowl, then if I start eating it, I don't know if I want to finish it, or I get full too quick, or it makes me sick. So all these things kind of come through their minds, and it's like you don't really comprehend what's going on in their own head because, you know, they're kids.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They're just, I mean, they're so resilient though, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are.
If this was an adult doing this, they'd be complaining left, right and centre all the time. But kids just...
Like I'm doing right now. And it's not even me, but you know.
No, but I mean, we do complain and they just take it in their stride.
Yeah, they do.
Like, oh, I vomited. Oh, okay, I do feel like crap, but, you know, it's, you know, I think adults in hospital probably complain a lot more. I understand why nurses want to work with kids, I think, sometimes.
Yeah. In my head, it's like kids would be harder because they can't talk to you and communicate properly because they're kids. But yeah, I understand what you mean. I don't think I'd be as strong as Ollie if I was me with cancer, especially brain cancer. I'd be
definitely
almost given up.
Yeah.
I'd be wanting to fight and stay alive for my kids and my family, but like some of the things that I've seen him go through, and I look at it and I try and picture myself going through it, and I don't know if I could.
Yeah, I don't. It just gives you a lot more respect though that if you do know adults that have been through cancer treatment, you're like, holy crap, I had no idea what you went through at that point of time, and I'm sorry. Like you just take it as what you kind of see on TV and things like that, but you do. We're in it. We're doing it. Like I feel like you feel everything, although you're not physically feeling it. When you watch your child go through the struggles, just like dressing changes of the central line. I mean, I think it was the very last one we did for Eloise that she didn't cry her way through it. And that was like, every week you had to go in knowing that you're going to make your child do something they don't want to do, but it needs to be done. Otherwise, they'll end up with an infection or something really bad that could potentially really kill them. People don't realise that, how at risk these oncology kids are, or anyone with a weak immune system. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that, like I was talking before when I mentioned the kid, like my daughter getting a temp and Ollie getting a temp, and like she could have a temperature and be really sick, and then he could have a temperature and not get sick, but then it could quite literally kill him.
Yes, exactly.
Take out his system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even just that, like knowing when I got told he had cancer and knowing that, you know, it was life-threatening because it was brain cancer, or just cancer in general is life-threatening, but being told that he had a tumor in his head, I'm just like, everything just exploded. And trying to think about those sorts of things, but then being told, you know, he's immune compromised now, so everything kind of changes in this regard with temperatures and illness and sickness and bacterias and all those infections and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And you've just got to be really careful, you know. You're going to have to turn into those germ freaks where you glove up and you wash your hands all the time, you wear your mask out in public. And he's like, COVID's been really good practice for you guys because now you're just going to have to start doing that normally.
Yes. That's where I loved COVID in a sense because, you know, I think probably about 6 months into COVID when my daughter was diagnosed, but I'm like, at least people understand the benefit of wearing masks, the benefit of washing your hands and all those things, to pay more attention if you've got that sniffle or little cough going on. Just stuff like that just, you know, it was a blessing in disguise. Also another thing, this is going to sound horrible to all those people that were in lockdown, but it didn't bother me too much when you were in lockdown because we were living such a secluded life that I was like, oh, I'm not missing out on anything. My daughter's not missing out on birthday parties and things like that because no one can do it. And as selfish as that sounds, it was kind of like, oh, we're in lockdown again. Who cares?
I've been in lockdown this whole time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in some ways, yes, COVID was good, but in other ways it definitely made our lives harder too.
Yeah. And speaking of making your life harder, so you were telling me you went from one job to another?
Yes. So I didn't. My husband and I were very, very blessed during this time to have extremely, extremely supportive workplaces. I had been in my job at this time probably about 13 years, had my beautiful little work family. So I took about 12 months off work, but they kept me like employed the whole time and I could go back to work in my own time, which was great. I think it was throughout this process my husband decided to change jobs. He just had someone reach out and get a job offer, which was great. He actually interviewed down here at a cafe nearby while we were in the oncology clinic. And unfortunately that day we came a little bit underprepared and I think my daughter ended up having a temp. And I was like, you're going to have to go home and get we had an overnight bag, but I'm like, we'll be here for a couple of days now. But that all ended up well. And he's still working for the people that he got the job for now. But at the time, even they were very understanding workplace as well. They knew that they were employing someone that had a child that was quite unwell. But I will say for us, our workplaces couldn't have been any more supportive. They gave us everything and anything we could want. I since now have left my job 12 months ago. I was a dental assistant. I loved it until I felt like I just didn't. I just stopped enjoying it, and I thought there's more to me than this. And I enrolled in a TAFE course after not doing any form of education for 15 years. I did my certificate 4 in mental health last year. I've now gone back this year to do my diploma in mental health. So hoping, I'd love to change the world and give everyone the support they need, but I mean, it's going to be very hard, but this has given me the drive to definitely make a shift in my life and go out and actually hopefully do something again that I love doing as a job.
Yeah, and the benefit to others sort of thing.
Yes. My ideal world would be working with beautiful oncology families. A bit hard to do on the coast, given that, if you have an oncology patient as a child, you're living in Sydney, basically. So we'll just see what happens at the end of the year and what I end up doing. But that would be a great goal of mine to achieve, I think, if I could end up doing something like that.
That would be very cool. Hopefully, even coming from this podcast, maybe get some connections through Red Kite or the hospital maybe.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be really cool.
Yep, I would just love it, because you need someone who's seen it, who feels it, who has that life experience that, no one can get it unless you're there. It's the same with everything in life though. Yeah, you need supports from someone, like just even talking to you. You're probably the first person I've really spoken to about this. I just found it hard during COVID times as well to make connections with people within the clinic and things like that, and especially living between Westmead and Gosford. Yeah. It was just, quite difficult, and I think all the face-to-face stuff had stopped. There was nothing. And, I'm more of a face-to-face kind of person if I'm going to talk to you.
Yeah, same.
So, Yeah, so hopefully I'd love any opportunities.
Did you hear that, Red Kite?
Let me know.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Well, hopefully that works out for you. Hopefully your diploma goes well.
Yes.
I was talking to one of the staff members here, actually, Chris, on the reception desk.
Okay.
And because he does this job, but he hasn't got any formal qualifications as a counsellor or anything, but because he's dealing with parents and children going through this journey while working at Ronald McDonald, he came across this thing called the accidental counsellor. And it's like just a short course. Yeah, okay, yeah. And it was just interesting. I Googled it and had a look at it, and, it's just kind of like a day course, or you can do a longer course if you wanted to. But it's just about, how to approach conversations and talk to people and give them just that little bit of extra shoulder to cry on sort of thing when they're in that time of need. Chris, normally, he's a great guy. I'll probably have him on this channel. He's easygoing and he talks to people all the time. Like people come out and, ask for toilet paper, and then the next minute, 2 hours later, you're still talking to him about your problems. Like he's just so open and easy to talk to. Having him do that course would be amazing. Give him that little extra edge to help people. Same sort of thing with me going through this journey. It's kind of giving me that sort of revitalization in my mind of what is important in life. Yep. Trying to help people and help each other and stick together, especially for people that are going through this sort of traumatic, life-changing event of a child's medical diagnosis is something that is now a drive and a passion for me. Just talking to people. Like I'm a big talker. I've been in hospitality my whole life. I've always been pretty down-to-earth sort of guy. If you talk to my, high school friends sort of thing, I've always been a bit of a friend to everybody. Yep. So I kind of find it easy to talk to people. But the thing that I struggle with is, obviously this is a very raw and emotional topic. I kind of absorb those sort of emotions. Yeah. So I've literally held back tears probably 3 times talking to you about your daughter. But it's also amazing and heartwarming in the same sense. And it's kind of uplifting me and giving me more of a drive to want to talk to more people and hear more stories and try and help them out in some kind of a way. So yeah, it's really cool to hear that your life changes and going from your one job that was amazing and very supportive and awesome, and you did it for 13 years. That's pretty cool.
I actually ended up 15 years and then
15 years. But now you've made that shift.
I've made the shift, and it wasn't easy. I think I needed to kick up the butt to do something different. Yeah. It was the only job I'd ever had. So to stop and leave, it was a big, big step of mine, but I am so happy I did it. I don't miss the work, but I definitely miss the people, but I see them from time to time. Yeah,
which is cool. Yeah. Which is awesome. All right, so now we'll quickly get into some of the supportive things that we were talking about. Obviously Ronald McDonald and the red kite bag that you've got, but just some of more of those things that kind of stood out to you through your journey. What are those sort of things that you can remember?
The Children's Cancer Foundation, the little boxes the kids get when you're in the clinic and you're bored out of your brain.
Yeah, the little food and little treats and toys.
This, like, I remember even as kids, my dad would donate. They have the cars in the shopping centre and they want you to buy those raffle tickets. Buy it. That actually, it's a real deal charity, people.
Yep.
Like, do it because, you know, it's something as simple as just a few snacks, but the kids get so excited to go through it and be like, I want to eat this and this and this. And you're like, cool, go for it. Again, red kite, Coles gift cards, all of that sort of stuff, the bag. Oh, it was just so practical. Loved it. Also, we now donate money. I think it's the Kids Cancer Institute. It's a research place because really what we need is a cure. Yeah. Simpler treatments. I mean, if you go back even for the cancer my daughter had 10, 15 years ago, the success rate was nowhere near as good as it is today. It is so scary when you read those stats. But thanks to people providing and doing this research, running trials and things like that, we are making progress. If you don't donate blood, do it. Yep. Please, if you're not sure if you can or can't do it, just ask. Yeah, because there's a shortage, especially coming winter time. And, you know, I never used to do it, but I do now. And I tell everybody, please do it. Just, you know, even if it's once every 6 months, it doesn't have to be as often, but any little bit helps because without that, platelet transfusions and so many other blood products that these kids need, they wouldn't be here. Yeah, exactly. They would not make it through their treatment plan. They wouldn't. Definitely not. Yes, and Ronald McDonald House, beautiful little place to live, and also Central Coast Kids in Need for paying for the accommodation for us to actually be able to stay at Ronald McDonald House and all the beautiful little gifts we get at Christmas time. Yeah. Nothing beats a smile on a kid's face when they're going through something like this. It's, you know, you can get endless pencils and colouring in books and stuff like that. But I tell you what, when they get it, it doesn't matter if they've got 20 of them already, the smile on their face and stickers and all that sort of stuff and Play-Doh. My daughter was obsessed with Play-Doh. Every time you go into the clinic, I would like Play-Doh, please. Or the slime. I want the slime, please. My gosh, that drives me bonkers, that slime. You've got to really keep an eye on your kid when they've got that. I saw a kid get stuck in their hair once in the clinic. Yep. That was entertaining. They would have probably had to get it cut out. I don't know. Oh, goodness. I don't know what ended up happening, but that was a good one. What were some of the standout things that happened during your stay here? Okay, again, because it did happen during COVID, a lot of visitors weren't allowed, and that was including my family. So we would have to meet them over the road at the park. But I mean, I think it was towards the end of our stays, they were finally allowed in, and that was so beautiful because they actually got to see where we were staying, and I think it made them feel a lot more comfortable knowing how good the facility is. Meals from the heart. Yep. Most of the time we weren't lucky enough to get those, but when we did, oh my gosh, it was just a blessing in disguise. You don't have to think about cooking or anything. Again, like just little things they'd have in their pantry here. Say your kid's in hospital and you just need to grab something like just some noodles or anything like that just to get you through, like, you know, the next probably 12 to 24 hours before you actually think, I better eat again. The kitchen facilities and stuff. At Christmas time, Santa came. My daughter was less than impressed with that, and would have been the eels that came and handed out gifts and stuff like that, which was just lovely. Yeah, but just being made to feel comfortable in an environment when you feel so lost means so much. And I stepped in here today after, about 2 years of not being in here, and it still feels like home. It's a crazy way to look at it, but it's a place where I feel comfortable and, you know, just safe. Yeah, it's a home away from home, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely. You know, as much as I don't want to go back and I don't want this to be my home again, but it was just, it's interesting stepping back in after this time and just seeing the environment, just thinking, oh my gosh, how much time did I spend here? How many tears have I cried in this place? You know, how many times have I stumbled up the stairs because I've had no sleep and I'm just like, where's my room again? What number are we this time? I find that I still go to open the doors without buzzing. I'll just go grab the handle and then I face plant the door. I'm like, oh yeah, right. Or you lock yourself out of the room. Lock yourself out of the room, yep. It's like, no. What are some of the sort of wisdom of your experience that you could pass on to other parents? ride the roller coaster. I mean, if you need to be emotional, just be emotional and let it out. I mean, I myself am probably guilty of not letting out enough emotion, but I've never ugly cried in front of so many people in my life. It's just become a thing, you know. You get told this or that, or just some frustrating news, tears of frustration or whatever, and you're not alone. And it can feel so lonely and isolating at times because you watch your friends and family living their life, although they're thinking of you and they are so supportive. Love my friends, love my family. It's so different. And I think at times, more so family felt very lost because they weren't able to come into hospital and stuff like that and help us out like they wanted to. But I mean, and take on help. I swear I was very much, I can do that person. But then when we moved down here for a while, I was like, Mom, can you go clean my house, please?
Yeah.
Because I want to go home to a clean house, and I had to rely on them to pack suitcases for us. And even when we left here, we had to call in my father-in-law at the last minute because we couldn't fit all the stuff in our car that we'd had people bring from home, or the lovely gifts that we were given. So that was, again, a funny kind of experience because we're trying to play Tetris in this car and we're like, it's not working. And all we wanted to do was get home, and then we had to wait another hour or two to be able to get there. But I mean, and if you need help, ask for it. Yeah. Definitely ask for it. And don't be afraid to say what you're thinking and how you feel if something's not right. You have the right to speak up. Do it. You have a voice, so use it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really good advice. All right, cool. Well, thank you for coming on Internal Battle.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Thank you very much.
No worries.
I will say, so with the doctors, they are great and brilliant, but they're thinking about the logics of how to fix your child. When it comes to nurses, they are living and breathing this with you. They see, the child in pain and things like that. So take their advice because they have it right. If they say, nope, ask the doctor for another script for something to help out, they know what they're talking about. They see it all day, every day. And there was one stage my daughter was getting a temperature basically at the same time every day for 3 or 4 days straight. And they're like, oh, we see this quite often, where the doctor never said anything like that. The nurses are like, for some strange thing, I don't know, there could be a reason behind it, but they were like, we see this a fair bit in kids. It just once every 24 hours, they spike the temp. And it was just, it's just good to get their input, and they really know what they're doing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Good little tip. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed listening to Brooke's journey about her young daughter who faced a grueling 2-year treatment to come out on top and beat leukemia. I hope you got something out of Brooke's recap of her experiences. And if you have any questions for either myself or for Brooke, please leave a comment down below. If you'd like to hear more inspiring stories like Brooke's, and support Internal Battle as a brand new podcast and YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button and like the videos. This way you can keep up to date and follow the journeys of so many families who have been dealt this such a rough card in life and facing childhood medical diagnosis. If you'd like to get behind Internal Battle, please head over to our website. That's www.internalbattle.com. My son's got his amazing artwork on the webpage that he did during his cancer treatment, or he's still doing during his cancer treatment. Or you can just simply head over to our socials, Facebook and Instagram, Internal Battle, or Ollie Bear and Our Cancer Journey. Thanks for listening, and I can't wait to introduce you to the next guest on the show. Take care for now. I'll see you soon. Bye.